So in this video you're about to watch, it's basically going to be me talking about the making, I guess, pre-production of Take the Wheel, and just a little deep dive, fun stuff, yay. I've never done something like this, so I had a lot to say about it. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. It's gonna be like 20 minutes. Also, throughout the whole video I was sick, so if I sound like I'm talking a certain way, I just blame that. By the time I release this video, the short film Take the Wheel should be out, so I'm gonna leave the link for that in the description. I highly suggest, if you haven't watched it, go watch that first and then come back here if you care to hear me talk about the long process of making the film. Writing it, making it, editing, everything. This video isn't a need to watch thing, it's more just if you're interested in the behind the scenes of post-production, that's pretty much what this is about. And I'm not a film nerd. I don't know anything about film, really. Probably shouldn't say that before you watch one of the films that I've written, but yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy the film that me and my cousins worked so hard on, and we, for the most part, like. I hope it helps. I hope it encourages you. I hope you continue to watch and enjoy. Have a blessed day.
Rolling. Speeding. Scene 8A, take 1.
So the story itself stemmed from this idea that I came up with, that I wrote down, and is completely different from what the film became. It originally started as a family who were going on a little field trip, and in the beginning it would start all happy, yay, we love each other, family. I'm losing my voice. And then in the car, as time went on, things would sort of come to the surface and they would slowly start to get angry at each other. But I think if I went through with that idea, it would have been much longer of a film, probably. And so as I toyed with the idea, I slowly figured out the dynamic of the family. So in the film, you're going to see our main character, who is essentially going to be the problem solver, the people fixer, your typical annoying person, your typical obnoxious protagonist, I guess. Casey's character is more made to represent the audience in a way, and that's why you could say that Casey's character is maybe lacking a little bit of personality. She's not necessarily intended to stand out. She's not necessarily intended to have any kind of character development. It's just more of she is a vessel for the perspective. It's not that deep, man. In the beginning, we see all the negative stuff from her perspective, and as we... Perspective, yesterday. Yeah. We see it from her perspective. That's the worst. In the beginning, we see it more from her perspective, and everything looks more negative and grim. And as we go, we learn with her that things aren't as great, things aren't as negative, and it's just all about how you see it. It's about what you choose to look at. Because if you're coming from the direction of everything is always bad all the time, it's always loud, they're always upset, our brother's always hiding from them, of course you're going to want to do something to change that. But you're going to further dirty your lens, because all you're doing is filling your mind with the negative things, the bad stuff about your siblings, and you're never going to see the good about their relationships. And then you have the character that kind of keeps the protagonist under control. The more understanding one, I guess you could say the ideal, not Christian, but the ideal perspective. This is the more Christ-like take on the situation. Then you have the middle child who's just having the best time. I'm a middle child. Norman's character came out a little bit differently too than what I intended it to be. I'm gonna blame Andrew for that. It's not a fault. I really like how the character came out. In the beginning, I intended to have him more skittish, I guess, and just more timid and like actively afraid of his sisters. But Andrew turned the character into someone more relatable. It's very realistic as to how I think most people would react to people. But during the fights that the sisters have, you can see that he is visibly annoyed and he's being affected by the fights. On one end, you have the negative perspective and the positive perspective. So in the middle, I guess, is where Norman is. So having that character in the dynamic, I think, is good for balancing it out writing-wise and just overall story wise. The same.
Where's the monkey?
And then, of course, the youngest ones who just have no sense of peace. They have no awareness, really. They just kind of do as they please. You have one that antagonizes the other because it's funny, and the other who cannot help but retaliate to everything. In this film, of course, the parts that are highlighted are the fights. We're made to assume that they're constantly bickering, they're constantly getting into fights. Whereas, my monkeys. This is my circus. These are my monkeys. I guess in the end, you come to terms with the fact that arguing and bickering is just kind of part of their flow. I mean, obviously it's not right, and siblings should not bicker like this. You could say that it just symbolizes siblings fighting, and like, siblings fight. Siblings are gonna fight, but then they're gonna get along. You do not need to make things peaceful 100% of the time because that's not realistic. You're not gonna do it, you're just gonna knock it over. It's gonna come, hallelujah. I don't know what I was about to say. You're not.
I hate you so much.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
It's like.
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Dude, angle it. Angle it. Okay. Apologize.
You can continue.
No, I can't. Okay, good job.
I wanted to hit you in the face though.
Good job. Okay, leave it. Sorry, I'm sorry. If you try, you could find an oxymoron because Nora seems to be the one fixing the siblings, or Casey. We see that Nora doesn't feel the need to interfere in her siblings' bickering and stuff because she understands that they are, in fact, kids. There's no detrimental root of the problem. In contrast to the girls' bickering, the girls' issue is with each other being annoying. Casey's issue is with the situation and the fact that it is not what she feels it should be. So if you go deeper into that, her issue will end up being with God. So Nora's act is meant to be a spiritual service to a fellow Christian more than her trying to control her sibling. There's also little things hinting to control within the film that is kind of just for me because it's not as obvious. There's little things like Norman putting music in his ears to try and isolate himself, trying to control his intake of the outside world. And a more obvious one that's shown would be a situation between the sisters where my character, Faith, she kind of lets go of her control for the sake of her sister and kind of for the sake of peace. So in that situation, that's another example of just, you don't need to control this, you can change your perspective on it. Another thing I like that we didn't add until later, in the beginning, we see the light in Norman's room flick off. Casey turns the light on. It is a little thing, it's a very subtle little thing, turning the light on. But the act of taking her brother out of darkness because she doesn't want him to be in the dark, that was fun. That wasn't a thing until I talked to Melanie while we were setting up the shots while I was already in Maine. This was a couple days before shooting, I believe, where I decided, since we're getting a shot of the hallway anyway, it would be cool to see the light just turn back off. I do like the idea of him, like, shutting the light off.
Oh, then
After she walks away. And so I like that little detail. Typically, Melissa is our storyboard artist. I don't know why I did it this time. I think it was just easier in concept because I wrote it and I knew what I wanted it to look like and everything. It was really fun. I just chose a day and I kind of cranked them all out at once. I just spent like 7 hours drawing nonstop, and I'd never done that before for anything. I've never made a storyboard before. Melissa sort of coached me on that. She sent me videos and I studied it and how to make a storyboard, how to do it well, and how to use different things in order to explain the shot and stuff. I'm not familiar with shots at all. I had to learn names of shots. I had to figure out what different shots looked like and what they were. I'm not well versed in the technical vernacular. So I did so many new things this film. Another new thing is I was involved in the editing, which typically, until we did this film, I had no idea how they edited, how they did the stuff, the process, anything. Since I'm so far away, me and Melissa had to figure out some sort of schedule. It would be really strange because we'd be on the phone and she would show me things and I wouldn't know exactly what it looked like until she posted it and showed it to me and Megan afterwards. So there was a lot more guesswork involved than I would have liked, and there was a lot of eyeballing. Oh, the joys of editing. Since we were doing so many different things, I thought that we might as well keep going. Me and Melissa did a different way of editing altogether. We did a different process from what they're typically used to doing. Since this is a longer film than they typically do for short films, this process was a little bit easier to do. We would cut it into scenes and we would edit it one scene at a time instead of going through the entire film. So it would be the first draft of the first scene and then the second draft of the first scene. We would keep going until it was good. It also kept our minds fresh because we weren't just watching the film over and over again and completely getting numb to every aspect of it. And it was very nice to, when we were done with a scene, just be done with it and just move on to the next. I do edit my own things, so I do have an understanding of editing films. Not as much as Creative Truth Films, obviously. I'm not as experienced when it comes to filming short films. I do film videos, and I understand it's like I'm about to cry. I understand the mechanics, most of the mechanics when it comes to editing stuff and what you need to do in order to achieve certain things. So I think it was nice for Melissa to have someone else who understood what we needed to do in order to achieve something. I think the process was as good as it could have been, considering. And I'm very thankful to God that we did not lose our minds. I mean, we kind of did sometimes, but it passed.